The world looks normal until you stare long enough into the cracks and realize some people are monsters pretending to be human. Tonight's stories aren't ghost tales. They aren't urban legends. They're real cases involving predators who hid behind smiles, jobs, neighborhoods, even families. And the horror doesn't come from what they did in the dark. It comes from how close they lived to ordinary people who never suspected a thing. These stories aren't just disturbing, they're uncomfortable, because they remind us that the scariest monsters don't stalk forests or abandoned roads. They wait in plain sight, living quiet lives, until someone notices the one detail they weren't supposed to. Tonight, we're walking straight into those details. Welcome to ShadowBane. Russian vigilante dad. The night started quietly. Vyacheslav Matrosov sat at his kitchen table, fingers drumming on the wood. Steam curled from the mug in front of him, carrying the scent of black tea mixed with a hint of cinnamon from the cookies his daughters had baked earlier. Outside, the wind rattled the old window panes, carrying a faint smell of wet earth from the small village of Pribrezhnoye. Oleg Sviridov, his best friend for over a decade, was sprawled on the couch, phone in hand, half asleep after a night of drinking. Vyacheslav had trusted him completely. Oleg had been around the daughters countless times, babysat them even. He knew the house, knew the routines, knew Vyacheslav like a brother. But trust, Vyacheslav would soon learn, is a fragile thing. A flicker of curiosity, a subtle unease. He leaned over and grabbed the phone. A quick scroll, a tap, and then the world broke. The screen showed his 6-year-old daughter, and Oleg. Vyacheslav froze. His chest tightened, breath shallow. He pressed a hand to his mouth to stop the scream. Trembling, he backed into the kitchen. His eyes darted around. The walls, the photographs, the small wooden toys scattered on the floor. Everything familiar now seemed tainted, poisoned. Natalia, his wife, walked in, her coat still damp from the evening rain. Her eyes widened at the sight of Vyacheslav, face pale, hands shaking. "Show me," she whispered, fear creeping into her voice. He handed her the phone. The room spun. She stumbled, gripping the counter for support. I can't," she gasped, voice breaking. "I feel sick." Vyacheslav screamed then. Not just a shout, but a guttural, raw cry that carried every ounce of disbelief, betrayal, and rage he had ever felt. "This is my best friend," he cried. "I trusted him with our children. I trusted him as myself." The next days were a blur of calls to police, frantic discussions, sleepless nights. Reports were filed, but the authorities, they moved slowly. Weeks passed, nothing changed, no action, and with every unanswered call, the fire inside Vyacheslav grew hotter, darker. He knew he had to act. The confrontation happened one evening, under a sky thick with low, dark clouds. He drove to Oleg's apartment, the tires crunching on the frost-covered dirt road. The engine hummed softly, but Vyacheslav's mind roared. When he arrived, Oleg looked at him like a man waking from a dream, oblivious to the storm about to descend. No words first, only glances, heavy with accusation. Vyacheslav's hand gripped the steering wheel until knuckles turned white. Then, in the car, he spoke. "We're going for a drive." Oleg laughed nervously, not understanding. Vyacheslav didn't. He pressed the pedal, car reversed out of the driveway, tires squealing against the frost. The village streets were empty, cold mist curling around lampposts, ghostly in the night. They arrived at the edge of the woods, Dark shapes of trees stretched like fingers into the sky. Mud clung to their boots. Vyacheslav handed Oleg a shovel, watching the color drain from his friend's face. "Dig," he said, voice low and steady. Not a whisper, not a shout, just a command that carried inevitability. Oleg dug. The earth crumbled under each swing. Sweat mixed with the cold air, dripping into his eyes. Vyacheslav stood silently, watching. Every moment stretched, every breath sounded loud. The wind moaned between the trees. "Why are you doing this?" Oleg finally cried, voice breaking. I didn't." Vyacheslav's eyes were fixed on him, cold, unyielding. He didn't answer. He had no answers, only truth. The shovel dug deeper. The hole widened. Time slowed. Each swing echoed like a funeral drum. The weight of betrayal pressed on Vyacheslav's chest, and yet he didn't falter. Finally, he handed Oleg a knife, a single step closer to the inevitable. Fear radiated off Oleg in waves. He trembled, he struggled. The cold air bit at his skin. Vyacheslav's breath fogged in the night, visible and steady. Oleg fell into the grave himself. Vyacheslav did not strike. The world went quiet except for the wind. Self-inflicted. The law would call it suicide. But Vyacheslav knew the truth. He had made the world pay attention. Days later, the police arrived. Questions, suspicion, 15 years of potential prison. But then the autopsy, stab wounds self-inflicted, the truth unraveling in the hands of authorities. The courtroom was tense. Journalists scribbled frantically. Neighbors testified. Villagers rallied. They saw a father pushed beyond human limits, a man who acted when justice failed. Vyacheslav spent 18 months in prison. When he returned home, winter had faded, replaced by the tentative warmth of spring. His daughters ran into his arms. Natalia held him close. He posted a photo with the caption, "Home, love very much." And though the shadows of that night would never leave him, Vyacheslav Matrosov had drawn a line. A father's love, a line in the snow where innocence would be protected at all costs, even if it meant stepping into darkness. Brek Bednar. Brek Bednar loved video games. It was a simple life, screens glowing in his dim bedroom in Caterham, England. His headset snug over his ears, the sound of digital explosions filling the small room. At 13, the world of Call of Duty and Battlefield wasn't just entertainment, it was escape. It was where he felt clever, alive, connected. And then he met Lewis. Known online as Eagle16, Lewis was unlike anyone Brek had ever encountered. Cool, confident, mysterious. He spoke of wealth, secret missions for the US government, and travels that spanned continents. Dubai, Syria, New York. Lewis seemed real, more than real. He was a window into a life Brek wanted, a figure he idolized. The first messages were casual, gaming tips, jokes, laughs over shared victories. But soon, the conversation shifted. Little nudges here, suggestions there. "You don't need to follow all the rules," Lewis said. "You can skip school. You don't have to go to church if it bores you." Brek listened. He trusted him. He wanted to be like him. His mother noticed first. Lauren saw the changes, the coldness, the distance, the way Brek withdrew from friends, from family. She tried to intervene, parental controls, conversations, warnings, but Lewis was always one step ahead. Then came the videos, horrific, violent clips sent subtly at first, a test of boundaries. Brek's curiosity, innocence, and loyalty to Lewis kept him watching, kept him silent, and Lewis tightened the grip. Possessive, jealous, always watching, always directing. Brek's friends fell away. his life narrowed to a single connection, a single voice, a single influence. By February 2014, Lewis had convinced Breck to meet him in person. The details were precise: cab fare paid, directions sent, assurances that no one would know. It felt like a secret mission, exciting, important, adult. The night arrived. Breck slipped out of his house, avoiding his mother, heart pounding, rain-slicked streets, quiet and empty, stretched ahead of him. He clutched his backpack, every footstep amplified in the darkness. Taxi lights reflected on wet asphalt as he approached the meeting place, an apartment building in Grays, Essex. Inside, the air was cold, metallic, smelling faintly of bleach and damp carpet. Breck stepped forward, the door shutting behind him with a hollow thud, and then he realized Lewis wasn't a friend, not a mentor, not a role model. He was a predator. The apartment was silent except for the hum of a computer. Breck's hands shook, his breath caught, and then chaos. Breck was bound, helpless, the young boy who had idolized Lewis now completely under his control. Panic set in. Every scream seemed muffled by the sterile walls. The predator's calmness contrasted sharply with Breck's terror, a cruel reminder that power had shifted entirely. Outside, the world carried on. Parents unaware, friends online still messaging, oblivious to the nightmare unfolding in a small apartment. The aftermath was swift, but the scars lasted forever. Lewis was arrested, convicted, sentenced to life in prison, but for Breck's mother, Lauren, and his siblings, the questions lingered. How could this happen? How had a predator manipulated, isolated, and ultimately destroyed a life under the guise of friendship? Breck's death sent shockwaves through the community and the internet. The story became a warning, a grim reminder of the invisible dangers lurking behind glowing screens. Parents were vigilant, laws adjusted, systems examined, but the tragedy was irreversible, and yet, in the darkness, something resilient remained. Breck's story inspired action. The Breck Foundation was born, a shield against predators, a voice for victims, a legacy that sought to turn horror into awareness. His bedroom, once just a quiet sanctuary for games, now symbolizes something far more potent: the thin line between trust and danger, innocence and manipulation, life and the shadow of death. And the lesson is clear: sometimes the people we admire most, the ones we trust with our hearts, can hide a darkness we never imagined. If you are enjoying the video so far, then don't forget to like the video. Now let's dive into the third story, and believe me, it's dark. Larry Nassar. The gym smelled like chalk and sweat. Bright fluorescent lights reflected off polished floors, echoing with the soft thumps of sneakers and the metallic clang of weights. Girls practiced flips, tumbles, stretching and spinning with effortless grace. Coaches called out instructions. Parents watched from the sidelines, proud and trusting. And in the midst of it all, Larry Nassar moved quietly. He wore a white coat, clipboard in hand, professional, knowledgeable, trusted, the kind of man parents handed their children to without a second thought. Gymnasts believed in him. Their families believed in him. Schools, clubs, and USA Gymnastics relied on him. But behind the calm eyes, behind the doctor's smile, there was darkness. The abuse started subtly. An adjustment here, a treatment there, always medical, always justified. A hand on a shoulder, a touch that felt routine. But over time, the trust became a weapon. Nassar learned the names, the fears, the insecurities of every girl he encountered, and he used them meticulously. systematically hiding his crimes behind the guise of care. Parents saw the professionalism. The girls initially saw guidance, but the system, the very institutions meant to protect them, failed to notice, failed to act. Reports were filed, whispers of concern floated through offices, but the culture of silence, the fear of losing prestige, kept everyone complicit. Years passed. Some girls left the sport, some internalized shame, some carried memories too dark to speak aloud, and yet NASA continued. The tipping point came slowly. One by one, victims began to speak. Brave voices, trembling at first, grew louder. Stories were pieced together: emails, witness statements, medical records, evidence of manipulation, grooming, and abuse stacked like a dam ready to break. In the courtroom, the air was thick with anticipation. Survivors walked in, their eyes steady, their steps deliberate. Each told their story with a voice that wavered and strengthened at once. The room fell silent as NASA sat, expression blank, the weight of decades of betrayal finally closing in. The trial was long, detailed, harrowing, every testimony a glimpse into the insidiousness of the predator, every silence a reminder of the institutions that failed. And yet, the impact of each survivor's words was palpable: pain, defiance, courage, all in one moment. Outside, the world watched. Headlines screamed, social media buzzed. Parents, coaches, and athletes grappled with disbelief. How could a man so trusted hide such depravity for so long? How could the system allow it? But justice, at last, arrived. Life imprisonment, minimum 25 years. A sentence that acknowledged the scale of the harm, the betrayal, and the lives scarred forever. Yet even behind bars, NASA tried to control the narrative, starting a blog, mocking the survivors, attempting to twist the story. But the damage was done. His influence over the innocent, over the hopeful, had been shattered. And the girls, the survivors, they became stronger. The Breck Foundation, safe sport reforms, awareness campaigns, they rose from the shadows he had cast. A generation educated, vigilant, and unafraid to speak. The gym, once a symbol of trust and aspiration, now serves as a cautionary tale. Chalk and sweat remain, but forever intertwined with the memory of the man who betrayed that trust. And the lesson echoes: not every authority figure is safe. Not every hero wears the right uniform. Sometimes the most dangerous predators hide in plain sight, and the ones who survive carry the story, not just for themselves, but for everyone who comes after. If you found these stories chilling and want more real-life mysteries and true crime tales, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Until next time, stay curious, stay cautious, and keep your loved ones close to you.